Today's episode is all about imposter syndrome, a topic that affects many entrepreneurs, including t-shirt makers just like us. No matter how experienced or accomplished we may be, imposter syndrome can sneak its way into our minds, casting doubt on our abilities and hindering our success. In this episode, we'll explore the depths of imposter syndrome, identify its manifestations in our businesses, and discover effective strategies to overcome it. Let's jump right in.
You're listening to Turn Down the Hustle, the podcast dedicated to transforming how you run your creative online t-shirt business by working smarter, not harder, so you can spend more time with your why, people, and passions that matter most in your life. So throw on your favorite graphic tee and turn up the heat press, because it's time to turn down the hustle. Here's your host, digital marketer, cold brew lover, t-shirt maker, freckled hype girl, and owner of Sunkissed Virtual Assistant, Amy.
To truly understand imposter syndrome, let's start with the definition. According to dictionary.com, imposter syndrome is the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So it means that you don't feel like you deserve what you've earned. You feel like maybe it's luck, or maybe it was just a unique circumstance and this would never happen again. Imposter syndrome is that nagging feeling of fraudulence or self-doubt that creeps in when we achieve success. So whenever you're successful or you win at something or you do really well, you should feel really good, right? Well, imposter syndrome kind of robs you of that. It's that persistent voice in our heads that's saying you don't deserve what you've accomplished, or you're not as competent as others perceive you to be. This insidious mindset can act as an invisible barrier, holding us back from reaching our full potential as creative entrepreneurs. And that's why it's really important that we not only recognize imposter syndrome in our own lives or our own businesses, but then taking the next step to captivate those thoughts and do something with them so we can take our business to the next level. It's particularly very prevalent for those of us who work independently and tirelessly to build our e-commerce or small business ventures. Many factors contribute to imposter syndrome. Here are just a few of those factors. The first one being lack of role models or people who look like you doing what you're doing. You might experience this a lot when it comes to doing your craft or line of work in your hometown, or when you get around your friends. Maybe many of them don't own a small business. And when you guys get together and your friends start asking you about your business and you start telling them how well it's doing, or all of the things that you figured out with how to set up your expenses for all of your taxes and the process on how to make a shirt, their eyes are just glazed over and they're so impressed and they think it's so cool that you've started your own small business from scratch. And then instantly you just start to feel like this shrinking feeling inside of just like, oh my gosh, I did start my own small business. Do I know what I'm doing? If only they really knew that I actually don't know how to do this process, or I messed up this many shirts last week. They have no clue. So you can start to feel that imposter syndrome creep in if you're not surrounded by others just like you. Another factor that can contribute to imposter syndrome is racist and sexist comments, such as like maybe an example of like women don't know how to run a business, or women aren't good at math, or insert your own racist comment that would fit this context. And that can start to crumble you and defeat you as well, even though they say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. We all know that that is never true, and that words do stick with you. So when people make those sly or under the breath kind of comments, even if you read it online, sometimes in moments of success, those comments can kind of creep back up and you might start to believe them. And then the last factor that may contribute to imposter syndrome in business is not having a supportive business partner. I'm not talking about your partner in the day-to-day who you do life with. I'm not necessarily talking about having an employee that needs to work in your business. Just having someone who can understand what you're dealing with, and whenever you do have a win, they understand the magnitude of that win. So if you were to go tell your friend that you just had 3 people sign up to host their own tea party, your friend's going to look at you and be like, oh, okay, what flavor did they pick? They don't understand. So being able to celebrate those wins aren't as magnified or at the level that they should be celebrated because you don't have people who understand. That's why it's really important to find a community of like-minded people that you can celebrate these wins with. So whenever you tell someone, hey, I just finished setting up all of my infinite options on Shopify's, you should see all of my different menu dropdowns. It's amazing with all the conditional logic. If you were to share that in my Facebook group with other business owners, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, show me your ways. But again, if you told your kid that, they're going to be like, awesome, Mom, can I get back to the game? So it's really important that you find a supportive community to where you can start to embrace those wins. So where are we going in today's episode? We've already defined what imposter syndrome is and kind of gotten you familiar to the concept. Some of you might be thinking, oh yeah, that's me right away. Others of you are like, I'm still not sure that I struggle with this. This is a new concept to me. Well, we're going to break this episode down into 3 parts. The first part is we're going to do kind of like a self-identification quiz. I'm going to ask you a few questions and it'll be yes or no, and we'll figure out how many yeses you get to those questions. The second part is I'm going to give you specific scenarios on how imposter syndrome may manifest in your t-shirt business. And then I'm not going to have you identify the problems and go about your day. In part 3, we're going to talk about different ways that I recommend maybe to work on overcoming it. Just know throughout this episode is that I am telling you how I would love it to be in an ideal world, even in my ideal world. But as I'm bringing you this podcast, don't think like, oh man, Amy has this stuff down. She doesn't struggle with it. I struggle with it all the time. So when I'm picking topics for the podcast, it's either a common occurrence of questions that I'm seeing or popular topics, or it might just be something that I'm struggling with as well. And it's almost kind of like I need to give myself a dose of my own medicine. Let's jump into part 1 with the self-assessment. I have 7 questions for you. They are either yes or no. So there's no like, some of the time, maybe like a 6 out of 10. No, it's yes or no. So keep track of your yeses, maybe on your fingers. If you're driving, just do some mental math. But see how many yeses you get to these questions, and then we'll talk about it. So the first question being, do you often attribute your achievements to luck or timing rather than your own skills and abilities? So maybe after you get a large record of sales in your tea party, or a really good shopping week, or you do good on your Facebook Live, are you thinking like, wow, that was really lucky? Or man, that was good timing. It's the season right now. That's why, I did well. Yes or no? Do you contribute your achievements to luck or timing rather than your own skills and abilities? Number 2, do you struggle to accept compliments or recognition for your work, dismissing them as unwarranted? So do you usually deflect compliments, or if somebody recognizes your work, or are you able to accept the compliment, fully embrace it, and feel like they are exactly right and they mean it? Yes or no? Number 3, do you frequently compare yourself to others, feeling like you don't measure up in terms of talent or success? Do you struggle with comparison? Number 4, are you haunted by the fear of being exposed as a fraud, worried that you won't live up to others' expectations? That's not saying you are a fraud and people are going to find out, but you feel like maybe your behind the scenes real and raw life doesn't actually match what you present as a business, as a highlight reel to your customers. And you feel like, oh, if only they knew I just spent the entire car ride home from the grocery store yelling at my kid before I came onto this live smiling. This isn't actually me. And you feel like you might be exposed or considered a fraud, or you're not living up to others' expectations. Number 5, do you find yourself hesitating to take on new challenges because you believe you're not qualified enough? Number 6, do you constantly seek validation from others, even when it's unnecessary? Number 7, last question, do you experience feelings of anxiety or stress related to your work or your achievements? So tally them up. How many yeses did you get? While I wish you could just tell me right now, voice them, unfortunately it's a one-way conversation right now, but I'd ventured to guess if you're anything like me, more of these questions had yeses than they had nos. If you want to share the amount of yeses that you had in the Facebook group, you can search Turn Down the Hustle on Facebook and make a post to our Facebook group there. I'd love to know. Also, the main reason why I'd love for you to share is because you're going to quickly find that you are not alone. Imposter syndrome affects a staggering number of individuals, regardless of their age, gender, or level of success, believe it or not. In fact, studies published on the International Journal of Behavioral Science suggest that up to 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. More specifically, though, this is gender related, 75% of female executives have felt the weight of imposter syndrome. That was a study published on Forbes.com. Now that you've done the self-assessment, you might have a better idea of how bad you might struggle with imposter syndrome. But no matter if you answered yes to one question or 7, the point is that yes, or that one question you did answer yes to, is not serving you. So we do want to make sure we're identifying it in our own business. Understanding that imposter syndrome is a shared experience together can help us feel less isolated and more empowered to tackle it head on. Let's find the ways that maybe this imposter syndrome has manifested itself in your t-shirt business, even though it is not welcome at all. So let's look into 6 common scenarios that may have influenced your mindset and decision-making process. Now, I have to forewarn you, if those questions stung a little bit, I think this part of the podcast is going to sting even a little bit more, because now I'm going to give you actually specific scenarios where imposter syndrome is manifesting, and you might really see yourself in some of these situations. But hey, just remember that you're not alone in this. Many of us struggle with this, but I need to make sure that you understand that that is imposter syndrome when you are struggling with these areas. Okay, the first one being difficulty pricing products or services. If you struggle with pricing products because you feel like, no one would ever pay for this, or if someone does pay for it, you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they actually paid for that. Like, they really think it's worth that much? How often have you asked friends what they would pay for maybe the shirt or insert whatever item you're selling? Do you remember flipping through the pages of 17 magazine, rushing to find a pen for those fun quizzes in the back? Well, get ready to relive that excitement with my first ever quiz. This time, we're not figuring out which boy band you are. We're diving into what your email habits say about your summer activities. Are you a pool party, a beach day, 4th of July fireworks, or a sunrise jog? It's a fun, quick 10-question test that will give you some surprising insights into your email marketing style. And the best part, you'll get actionable tips based on your test result to boost your email game. Head over to sunkissva.com/email quiz to take the quiz now And don't forget, once you get your results, share them on social media and tag me. I can't wait to see which summer activity you get and to walk you through your next steps. Ready, set, quiz. Visit sunkissva.com/email quiz and let's have some fun this summer. Even when they respond with how much they would pay for it, when you list your product at that price, you might still feel uncomfortable. And you think to yourself, like, who would actually really buy this product at this item? And so what are you tempted to do? You undervalue your skills and you might decide, let me knock $3 off of that, or $5, or I'm only going to offer this if I put it on sale. I'll feel better about it then. And what you're doing is you're charging less than what you're worth. Not only what you're worth, but what the product is worth. And if you've listened to episode number 2, the sales only mentality is hurting your business, then you know good and well that when you're only selling your products at a discounted rate or you have sales all the time, it's actually hurting your business. And maybe you're starting to uncover how you got to this point now of why maybe you only ever offer sales is maybe it was an imposter syndrome issue to start. You don't feel like people would buy your products at the price that they do or will or should. So instead, you just play it small and you try to undercut yourself. So that's number 1. You might see imposter syndrome manifest itself if you have difficulty pricing products or your services. Number 2, fear of self-promotion. As a small business owner, you have to put yourself out there to share your brand and your product. You can make cool, beautiful things all day right inside your office, but if you're never sharing them, people are not going to buy them, they're not going to know about them, they're not going to be aware of them, and they're not going to be able to shop. You may feel like you're bragging about your product or your business, or you might feel like you're being too pushy when you promote yourself and your work. And again, instead, you may try to just play it small and just kind of be like, oh, here's a business card, very hesitantly to hand it out, or you don't really like to go on live. You feel like, oh, they're not going to want to watch, or they're going to think I'm just gloating or showboating, or they're not going to care about what I have to offer. That fear of self-promotion is not for you. That is imposter syndrome. People who are in your business group or following your business page or on your email list, they are on that list one of 2 reasons. Either they want to shop, they want to buy what you have, or they want to support. Now, those supporters are the ones where I'm talking about, it doesn't matter what you create. They're going to say, oh, it's beautiful. They are there until the wheels fall off. Either they want to shop or they want to support. So get out there. There are people ready to support you. This next one, number 3, can definitely feel nerve-wracking. The hesitation to share your work. So you make something beautiful, you tried out a new bleach technique, you can't believe how bright the white is on the bleach tee, can't believe how vivid the sublimation print is, you are stoked, and then you take a picture of it, lighting, bomb, you're using natural sunlight, the mock-up and flat lay just look amazing, and you are jamming up the post to post on social media or email it out to your email list. And just before you hit send or post, you freeze. You're thinking, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? Are they going to like it? A bit of vulnerability is required to step out and share your work while you brace for what your audience has to say or what they don't say, and you aren't quite sure if it's good enough. Can I just pause for a public announcement? Just remember, if people aren't commenting or aren't liking things on social media, that doesn't necessarily mean they hate it or they don't like it. Maybe they just did not see it, okay? Don't forget that the algorithms typically only reach 3 to 6% of your followers. So don't take it personal if people are not responding to your posts. Okay. End of public service announcement. So that slight pause you have before you hit post or send, That's imposter syndrome creeping up. I encourage you today, just hit post. Number 4 is comparison to others. So social media can open the door to comparing yourself to other creators or designers and feel like you don't measure up, leading you to doubt your own abilities. Whereas if you had a one-way channel for social media where maybe it was just your business group and no other things on the internet existed, maybe this wouldn't quite be an issue for comparison. But social media is such a complex dynamic to where comparison seems to become so easy to do or very common, and that can lead you to doubt your own abilities or talents. Number 5, perfectionism. You may strive for perfection in your work, leading you to obsess over details and spend too much time on individual projects. This may result in missing opportunities to sell, or you may waste money by recreating something over and over again. And that perfectionism is a symptom of imposter syndrome, thinking this isn't good enough or I need to do it better. But just realize that perfectionism could be costing you something else. And it's not necessarily saying your product isn't perfect or it isn't good to go. It's just that little voice inside your head telling you otherwise. Finally, number 6, difficulty accepting compliments. You may have a hard time accepting compliments on your work, feeling like you don't deserve the praise, or you may deflect and share praise in another person's direction instead of just taking the credit for your hard work. Those are 6 different ways that imposter syndrome might manifest themselves in the day-to-day of your t-shirt business. Of all the scenarios I just covered, pricing products is probably the one I struggle with the most. I know the time, effort, creativity, uniqueness, and investment that goes into building my products, but sometimes I put my customer first before I think about everything that goes into creating my products, and it's not always in a healthy way. I'm very conscious of my ideal customer's budget. I understand that this individual is just trying to make ends meet or maybe get a few extra funds so they can pay for summer camp for a kid or finally pay off debt or maybe get the courage to leave their 9 to 5. So I'm very conscious of that. I know they don't have a lot of money to spend. However, what helps me when I am pricing my products is knowing that unique value I bring to the table and that I can really change their business by investing my product. I'm either going to help them make more money with my products or I'm going to save them time and give them that time back with their why, the reason why they're in business in the first place. And that really matters to me. So I have to keep in mind that if they do invest in my product, I'm actually returning their investment on the back end and maybe even 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, whether that's in time or with money. So yes, my example might not resonate with you if you're not a business owner that sells to other businesses, but think about your product when you're selling it that's either meeting their desire or a need. So if you are delivering quality products at a reasonable amount of time for a turnaround time, and they know they can depend on you, that's solving a problem for them if they had birthday shirts that they needed for a whole set or they had a family reunion coming up. By you delivering on time and quality products, that is worth their investment. Whew, okay, now that we've dug in and did the work to identify exactly how imposter syndrome is manifesting itself in our creative businesses, let's talk about the different ways that we can overcome imposter syndrome. Now, number 1, you can do this by identifying your achievements and accomplishments. With how fast running a small business can be, it's easy to move on to the next thing before you look at the great work you have completed or accomplished. Don't forget to recognize even the small wins. They are so important. Whether you're writing them down on a post-it note, sticking it to your bulletin board so you remember, maybe you're making a list in your phone, whatever you do, make sure you are identifying those small wins. And moving on to number 2, You start to celebrate your achievements and accomplishments. Identifying your good work is step one, but take it to the next step by celebrating it. Can you share a win with your closest friends and family? Or a bonus day off to enjoy the day at a pool? You might be thinking like, oh my gosh, day off, small business owner, that doesn't match. Yes, it's possible. Schedule your post and take a day off, maybe even a couple days off if you want to be in this for the long haul. Working 7 days a week, it's not going to last long. Number 3, recognize that everyone feels like an imposter at certain times. As I mentioned earlier in this episode, upwards of 70% of people have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their life. And I'd bet to mention or argue that other 30% just doesn't know what imposter syndrome is. I would imagine that everyone has dealt with it at some point or another. This will help you realize that your feelings or thoughts may be true, but it's not the truth. Number 4, find a support network that speaks what is true, meaning they encourage you or they reemphasize what matters and what doesn't. Even if you may not believe in yourself at times, surrounding yourself with people who are positive, uplifting, and you respect will give you the confidence you need when it is difficult to find it on your own. Number 5, talk about your doubts. Discussing them with a trusted friend or colleague can help put them into perspective. It can also help to have someone who understands your situation. Empathy is key. So instead of letting those doubts fester and make you question reality, and if you're even supposed to be doing this, talk about them, air them out. Let's bring them to light. And then number 6, challenge your negative thoughts. When you have negative thoughts about your abilities, challenge them. Remember when you have been successful and that everyone makes mistakes sometimes. So when those thoughts do come up and you do voice them, and you might be thinking, I'll never be able to do this or do that, think about a time where you thought that before. And remember, you did accomplish that item or you did reach that sales goal. And remember, there was a point where you said you would never be able to do that, and you did. If you overcome imposter syndrome, the sky will be the limit in your business. This is because you'll be more likely to take risk, maybe even delegate some tasks, and ask for help when needed. As a result, you'll also be more likely to pursue new opportunities and reach your full potential. However, it's important to note that overcoming imposter syndrome also means embracing discomfort. Stepping out of your comfort zone and challenging the imposter within may feel unsettling at times, but it is in those unknown territories that true growth happens. As we wrap up this episode, I want you to reflect on your journey as a t-shirt maker and consider where imposter syndrome may be holding you back the most. Remember, you have the power to change your mindset one step at a time. By addressing imposter syndrome head-on, you can cultivate a positive and empowering perspective that propels your business forward. I hope this episode has shed light on the challenges of imposter syndrome and provided you with practical strategies to overcome it. Remember, you are capable, deserving, and destined for greatness. And most of all, you're not alone. Get in the Facebook group, search Turn Down the Hustle on Facebook, and let's talk about this. Join in on the conversation in the private, free community Facebook group. Keep challenging yourself, face your fears, and watch your t-shirt business flourish. It's time to wrap up another incredible episode of Turn Down the Hustle. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and found some valuable insights to fuel your journey. Don't forget to visit sunkissva.com/podcast to access the show notes for this episode. You'll find all the links mentioned in today's discussion, along with actionable tips and resources to help you implement what we've discussed. Lastly, make sure to hit that follow button so you never miss another episode. I'll be here cheering you on and sharing more inspiration and strategies to help you turn down the hustle and work smarter, not harder. I'm so honored to be a part of your journey. Until next time.